Boards and booze, booze and boards, drinks and beers, fight some hordes. Drank too much, forgot our swords, ran back home, filled our gourds, got drunk again, sang some chords. Boards and booze and boards, with Mickey and Jeb.
Hey everybody, we're up for another game today. I'm Mickey, this is Jeb, and Jeb, what are we playing today? Jeb!
I'm Batman.
What do you mean you're Batman? Oh, we're playing the DC Deck Builder.
Yep.
He's a horrible Batman.
I'm the game reviewer nobody wanted.
Anyways, so the DC Deck Builder, guess what kind of game it is?
Is
Deck
it
Builder.
worker
No, it's not
placement?
worker placement. Anyways, it's a deck builder game by Cryptosonic, based on the DC characters, and there's
2 to 5 players.
2 to 5 players. There's not much more to speak. Ages 15 and up. It doesn't need to be 15 and up. I can tell you that right now.
That's probably for the violence and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if you can read and add, you can play this game. Anyways, there's not much more to say about it. It's fairly popular. And we will be right back with components and overview. And
this is just the core set, right? Core box.
oh yeah, there's lots, but we can mention that later. But whatever. So this is there are many. So this is actually the first one, just the DC deck building game. Doesn't all the rest of them have some kind of tagline like Teen Titans or something like that? But this is just a base game. So anyways, we'll be back in a second with the components and stuff.
I'm still Batman.
Oh my gosh.
Alright, so we're here for the components of the DC Deck Builder game. There's some cards in front of you right now, and we're going to go over what they do, because all this game is cards, right, Mickey?
That's right.
So for the components, let's start with the superhero cards.
Alright, so superhero cards. This stack right here. They're a larger card. Everybody chooses a hero, or you can do it randomly. You just place the superhero card in front of you, and they all have an ability at the bottom, which are pretty self-explanatory. So that's it for that.
Yep. The next thing are the punch starting cards. They're, I guess, just the starter cards.
Your starter cards in all deck builders. Okay, I'll say all. I'm pretty sure that it is all, even though that's very dangerous to say sometimes. So in the DC deck builder, you start with 10 cards. You start with 3 vulnerabilities that have a 0 value. I can't even think of the word value. And you start with punches, which have a 0 value on there too, or buy cost, or whatever you want to call it. The difference between the two is Superman invulnerability, or the vulnerability one, has absolutely nothing. It's a dead card worth no victory points. And the punch cards, at least, have a +1 power. They are also worth no victory points. And I'll go over that real quick. The parts of the card, the name of the card, what kind of card it is. These are all starters in here. Cost of the card, and the victory points that they are worth at the end of the game. I'll go over that again when we get to some main cards. But that's what you start with. 10 cards, 3 vulnerabilities, and 7 punches.
The next type of card are the main deck cards.
Okay.
And there's a few different types of them.
That's the whole pile. Keep in mind that these are sleeved, so it looks a little more intimidating than it really is. There are 5 different types of cards in the main deck. So I have a location card. They operate a little bit different than everything else. I have an equipment card. I have a hero card. I have a villain card. I have a superpower card. And the reason those are important is because sometimes things will trigger off of what kind of card it is. In other words, something might say if you have a villain, or you can get a villain, or whatever, or how many superpowers did you use, etc., etc. So the type of card actually matters. Name of the card, again, down here, as you can see, you can start earning victory points. This one's actually worth 1, and this would be how much power it costs to buy it. So that's actually a cost type of thing. in this game, everything is bought with the power of your hands. So there's Man of Steel. He gives you a +3 power for the turn, which we will go over when we go through gameplay. But anyways, one more time, hero, equipment, location, superpower, and villain.
Right. The next type of card are the kick cards. Those aren't actually shuffled into the main deck. They're off to the side in a pile, and they can be bought
anytime.
Yep.
So these are kind of like a cheap cost, always available type of card unless it runs out. They sit off to the side, which you'll see during setup. That pile just stays there, and then they're available to buy. You take the top one, and look, oh, they're all kicks. Just keep buying kicks. Anyways, it's a 3 cost, it's worth a victory point, and it's a +2 power.
So upgraded punch, kind of.
It's an upgraded punch, that's exactly right.
The next type are weaknesses.
Weaknesses. Cruddy cards for your hand. They suck up spaces, and they do absolutely nothing, and they're actually worth -1 at the end of the game. So not only do they clog your hand, but they're actually against you at the end in terms of points.
And then the final type of card is the supervillain cards, and those are kind of what determine how long the game is, right?
Right.
And how you get closer to ending it.
Yep. So every game you're going to, we always start with Ra's al Ghul. He's always your starting villain. And then we are going to randomly take other villains to build the villain stack. And then Ra's will start on the top, and they'll be over here. And the goal of the game is to beat the whole stack of villains, and then count up victory points at the end. But anyways, that's how much power it costs to beat Ra's. What would happen is that person that beat them actually takes that card and gets to put that into their deck. And we'll get into that a little bit in just a minute when we go over gameplay. So that's the components. So villains, kicks, weaknesses, your starting hand, or starting deck rather, and the main cards for the deck.
Yep.
We'll be back just in just a minute, and we will show you
Setup. Alright, so we're going to do setup now. The first thing for setup is to deal each player a superhero, and then they have their own, or you deal out the starter cards as well. So
Okay.
in this scenario, I'm Cyborg.
Cyborg, and I'm Wonder Woman. We just randomly took a couple cards out. I will give Jeb a starter deck again, 3 vulnerabilities and 7 punches, and he will shuffle that up. And I will also take 3 vulnerabilities and 7 punches and shuffle those up. Okay, and then what's next, Jeb?
The next thing is to shuffle the main deck and place it in the middle of the players.
Alright, and this is kind of a huge deck, and I'll just give it I know it's shuffled, so here's part of it, and gives the other part a couple of shuffles, and then that's all good.
The next thing is to make the villains deck. And
Alright.
the way that works is typically there's going to be 8 villains. You can add more if you want, depending on how long of a game you want to play. One of the 8 is going to be Ra's al Ghul, so you set him
Always
aside,
your starter,
and then you just randomly pick 7 or however you
and
want
then I
to.
will shuffle the rest up, and I will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and place Ra's on top.
Yep, and then you put him, or you put that pile
Down to the end.
Oh, they can't see that.
Oh,
Let's put it right
there.
And then after you do that, you will do or you will make the lineup, which is going to be 5 cards from the main deck are going to be drawn and placed down the center. And if you watched, Star Realms, our video that we did on that, it's kind of similar, where there's a main deck and then there's the buying row or whatever.
Yep.
After you make the lineup, you will place the kick, weakness cards, and the supervillains at the end of the lineup. We already have the supervillains at the
Right,
end.
so just put one on the top like that, and put the other one down here like that. And honestly, it's whatever works for your
Yep.
table. They just need to be out there. It's kind of, if you keep them in the same spot, it just kind of makes it convenient for everybody though. So, that's it.
And that's everything for setup, so it's actually pretty easy.
Right.
I guess for gameplay, we determine the first player randomly,
Yep.
unless Flash. I think Flash's ability is that he goes first, right?
Because he's fast.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then what you'll do is everybody shuffles their player decks and draws 5 cards.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5. All right. An overview is that it's played over a series of rounds. On your turn, what you'll do is you'll play your cards from your hand, and the order matters because some stuff depends on other things. So you got to think about how you want to play this stuff.
Unlike the Star Round episode where
Right.
order doesn't matter, except in one little tweak. Anyways.
Yeah. The next thing is you total up your buying power, and then you can purchase the cards that equal your buying power or less, and you can purchase as many as long as that total adds up to what your power is. And then after you do that, you will place all the cards you buy into the discard. So we'll let Mickey do a quick round or a quick turn so you can see what he does.
Okay, so not much action on, obviously, the beginning of the game because I don't have any cool cards yet. But I did end up with 1 vulnerability, so that's absolutely worthless. And then I'll pay 4 punches. All the punches are +1 power. In this game, the power is everything. It's not split in between different things. So power is money, power is beat up the guys, power is equal to any of these things. So I have 4. So I can take a Batmobile if I want, which I will. And I can take another Batmobile if I want. And those all go into my discard pile.
Yep.
And then I would draw back up to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep, because at the end of your turn, what you do is you place all the cards that were played and bought into the discard, and then you draw up to 5. And then any unspent power is lost. So if he had 1 left over and he couldn't spend it, it's gone. Next, you will fill the empty spots in the lineup. So since he bought 2, he's going to flip 2.
And notice, I'm going to stop Jeb just for a second. Your deck builders are kind of all different in this particular spot of the game. Some say replace immediately when you buy a card, and others say what you see at the beginning of your turn is what you get. We are playing one of those games where I got to buy whatever I wanted as much as I wanted. It wasn't only a 1 buy, but nothing gets replaced until my turn is done. So now Jeb has these options on his turn.
Yep.
So that's actually one of the little things that's
one of the variations
of a deck builder that you can see.
And then the last thing at the end of the turn is if the supervillain is face down, you flip it up and resolve it.
Okay, what that means is if it's face down. So if I had beaten Roz, I would have taken him and put him in my discard.
So Roz is an 8 buy power or whatever.
Right.
So if Mickey had 8 and he spent all 8 on Roz.
Right. Look, the villain pile would be upside down. So Jeb would flip it over and we would have a new villain.
Well, Mickey, at the end of your turn, would flip it over.
Well, I mean, whoever. Somebody would take the card and flip it.
Right.
That's the point. That's what that means by upside down, just in case you guys were confused.
Yeah. And then that was everything for the end of the turn. So there's some random things that we've got notes on that matter in the game. So the first one is superhero abilities. You can only use them on your turn, if I'm correct, unless it's like a defend type thing.
They're pretty, and most of them are pretty clear too. So for Wonder Woman's ability is for each villain you buy or gain during your turn, draw an extra card at the end of your turn. Okay. So on my turn, I didn't get to buy any because there weren't any out. But if any of those cards had been a villain, then instead of drawing up to 5, I would have drawn up to 6 or 7 if I would have bought 2, etc., etc. Jeb has Cyborg, and what is your ability, Jeb?
If you play 1 or more superpowers during your turn, you get +1 power. If you played 1 or more equipment during your turn, draw a card.
Right. So if Jeb had superpower and played it during his turn, he would have got the +1 power, correct?
Yep. And if I had played that Batmobile, which is an equipment, I would have been able to draw a card.
Right. So, it's one of the things that is a little easy to forget when you're in the middle of the game and you're trying to do all kinds of stuff. don't forget your superhero power. They are pretty good.
Alright, the next thing I have is attacks and defense. So some of the cards will let you attack others, and then whoever gets attacked has a right to defend. So like if Mickey played a card that said attack a player and he picked me, then that would be him declaring an attack on me. And if I had a card in my hand that was a defense card, I could play that in response to his attack.
Make that a little more clear.
Yeah.
So, Harley Quinn. All the attacks are on villains, I'll just say that right now. Because it's bad guys and good guys. So, Harley has an attack. Each foe, your foes are your opponents, puts a punch or a vulnerability from his discard pile onto the top of his deck. So that means that Jeb, if I played this card, Jeb would have to put basically a starter card on the top of his deck. So that means he's going to draw into a less than stellar card next turn if I play the villain card. But Jeb has the Flash, super speed, superpower. All Jeb has to do is do what it says on defense. It's very clear, it's in bold, it says defense. You may discard this card to avoid an attack. And if you do, draw 2 cards. So not only does he get to avoid the attack here, but he would get to draw 2 if he gets rid of this. And it's actually a better card to use on defense than it is on your regular turn, because on your regular turn, if you play this, you just get to draw a card. So in other words, if you get to use it for defense, he'd get 2 cards. And there's various other defense are all different. So this could have been just reveal, and he would keep it in his hand. He just has to show it, and then he would avoid the attack. The point is, that's a defense card, and that is an attack card, and that's how those work.
And one thing to mention is that when you defend against an attack, you do not negate the attack. Because on the Harley Quinn card, it actually says +1 power, I believe. Yeah, it's +1 power, and then the attack is the second part. So if I defended against the attack, Harley Quinn, or Mickey, I guess, playing it, would still get the +1 power. It doesn't negate the entire card.
Right, exactly.
The next thing is supervillains. So when they're flipped, I think they usually do a super attack, or like an attack.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why Roz is the starter one, because he doesn't do anything. But let's say that he had been defeated, and it's time to flip the card. I flip over Black Manta, and it says, first appearance, attack. Each player discards the top card from his deck. If you discarded a card with cost 1 or more, choose one, and then it gives you options. Destroy it, meaning the card that you just discarded, or discard a card in your hand. So it's a bad thing. It's an attack, so it can be blocked with defense. Yes, the person that defeated the villain has to participate in the attack too. So it's a universal attack to everybody. That's how that works.
And then there was a note in the rulebook that said supervillains are villains. So I know some cards mention villains. The next thing are weaknesses. They're added to the player's discard and they subtract victory points, which Mickey had mentioned. Deck shuffling. Like most deck builders, you only reshuffle your deck when you need to draw, reveal, or discard a card. You don't shuffle
you can't.
it. Right. Location cards will stay in front of a player after you play them. So those don't get discarded when the other cards would. Destroying cards, what does that mean, Mickey?
Okay, so destroying a card is a term for the card going out of the game. So if a card gets destroyed, it goes off to the side. I know from playing this numerous times, I don't know if it's in the very base set, but it's at least, I know in some of the expansions, that there are cards that mess with the destroyed pile. So keep them separate. Don't put them back in with all your cards in the box. So if you destroy something, let's say you make like something out of my hand, say a Batmobile, if it gets destroyed, let's say put it over here, like away from this, away from your stuff, and just put it over there. Because in the rare instances, there are some things that mess with destroyed cards.
The next thing are gaining cards, which I believe is when you gain a card, you just get the card and put it in your discard. You don't actually pay the cost of the card.
That's correct. Everything goes in the discard unless the card says otherwise. There are some cards that would be say put it in your hand or put it to the top of your deck or something like that. But otherwise, if it's not clear on where it goes, you're 99% safe putting it to your discard pile.
Yep. And then I have a note on resolve card abilities. It says resolve in clockwise order. So I guess if something happens to multiple people, you would just do it in clockwise order.
Around the table, yeah.
And then resolve before resolving another ability. So when you play a card, you resolve it before another card is resolved. And then there's some variants of the games in the book that I've never played. I just played the regular game. And then there's also like a cheat sheet for the turns in the book. So, and the big thing for game end, which we haven't mentioned, is if you're unable to flip a villain card. So if that stack is empty and somebody has to flip the last villain card and there's nothing left, game over. And then the other one is if
this deck runs out. That doesn't happen in this game.
Yeah, it says if you're unable to refill all 5 spots in the lineup, which that deck would be.
It's very unlikely in the regular game of this that will happen.
And then once the game ends, you total up all the victory points of the cards that you have. That's your deck and your discard.
Yeah, everything that you own, you just total up the victory points. And notice that the villains are worth a lot, so it's very helpful to kill the villains.
Yep. And then whoever has the most victory points wins. If there's a tie, the win goes to whoever has the most supervillains that they defeated. And that's everything I got for it.
Yep, pretty simple.